we found our round 1 opponent, Cacao Fuego. It's a player that I recognize from the queues, and I think we're going to need to play well. This is a very solid hand. I'd be looking to level the Necromoeba and the Thronic Ambusher. Blocking with Necromoeba and not blocking with Thronic Ambusher. So this is a very, very strong turn 1 hand. Especially when we are going second. If we were going first, I think that I would actually play the Thronic Ambusher. So this Razor-Tooth Stalker is quite dangerous. We can't block all the lanes, so what we should want to do is to block it with the Necromoeba, just to make sure that it can't hit us and then move in and block something else. And I think we're going to play the Stormcaller to the, not Stormcaller, the Thronic Ambusher to the side in anticipation of something like a, well, actually, I don't think we'd get much value out of Infernal Visage because we need to deal with this one. So let's just play it over here to maybe allow for better future plays with Abyssal Brute. In this hand, we have a Scourge Hydra, combos with Necromoeba to deal with the Razor-Tooth Stalker and actually kill it. And that is I'd say that's a really good trade for us. Being able to kill it in one shot, also have the kind of combo with Scourge Hydra and Necromoeba is pretty sweet. And past that, since we're having such a great board so far, and if our opponent can't block the Ambusher in a good way, I'll be looking to play a Stormcaller in the open lane to push for even more damage here. In this position, having the Firelight Hunter would be very, very strong. Okay, so no blocking the Necromoeba or the Thronic Ambusher. This could easily turn into something bad for our opponent. So let's just make things hard for them. So we have currently effectively a four lane or 3 lane advantage with Necromoeba, Scourge Hydra, and Stormcaller winning their lanes respectively. And well, Spirit Leash here could be very powerful. I'd be reluctant if we weren't an aggressive deck to play a Spirit Leash to gain board position, because it can falter and be very bad in player levels 2 and 3. If they are leveled, rather than a card that is more useful in a greater number of situations. Spirit Leash is a very narrow card, and having narrow card leveled could put you in very tough positions. So I generally like having versatile cards leveled that fills multiple positions or multiple strategies, and being able to from there choose whether to go aggressive or to go defensive. But if we get to sacrifice an Oozling to play Spirit Leash on the Necromoeba, I suspect it's going to take at least 2 cards to deal with it. And then we've gained a lot of tempo. Okay, so the Necromoeba is going down. We can make a very big Thranic Ambusher here, which should still be a pretty interesting prospect. I've been looking to Frost Shatter Strike here to clear the Grove Huntress and trade with the Blizzard Shaman and Spirit Leash the Thranic Ambusher just to push for a lot of damage here. This levels quite poorly, but we're pushing for a lot of damage, and this Thranic Ambusher is a very big threat that is going to take a few cards to deal with. And having the Windweaver here to move out of the way, it's going to be very good. I'd suspect this game likely isn't going to player level 3, but we'll see. If our opponent misses on 2.1, we're in an amazing shape. So at this point, we're just playing good aggressive cards here. I'd rather have Wind Primordial than Zombie Titan. And I like this Wind Primordial to have full lane coverage. Like this. And if we play like this, it means that if we draw Abyssal Brute next turn, yes, we can move Windweaver and Wind Primordial out to the side lanes, play the Abyssal Brute in lane 2, which is likely going to be empty, and past that, play a Stormcaller into an open lane, hopefully. So what the plan is basically to ignore the lane that Cacofuego plays a card that survives in. So I think this game is very close to be over here because we have a 4-lane advantage. And even if they block lanes 1 and 5 here, we're pushing damage in 2 and 3. And if they block that next turn, we can push damage over the Volcanic Giant because we're going to be able to profitably block that this turn. I doubt there is anything our opponent can do here. So trading there is incredible for us. Windweaver will make this Abyssal Brute very, very dangerous. And then Stormcaller or Visage. And I think that's an easy Stormcaller. So, once again, if they block Brute and Stormcaller, we're pushing with Stormcaller and Windweaver. So, opponent is likely dead here, despite drawing a 10-11 in 2.1. Could be a deck construction problem for our opponent, because rather than having to block with the Blizzard Shaman, blocking our 12-6 with the Blizzard Shaman, could rather block the Blizzard Shaman with a 6-powered creature, but there wasn't any in the hand. So we're just, it's lethal there. So our opponent saw 3 hands in level 2. Couldn't do anything. So I predicted at least 2 of the games would look like this. And we've already got our first win this way. So let's go into the second round. considering the cards I leveled in the first game here, we leveled the Thranic Ambusher and the Necromoeba in the first hand, 2 cards that I wanted to level. Hand after that, we got to play a Scourge Hydra and a Stormcaller, 2 more creatures that I were very willing to level, and from that we gained a very big advantage because we won. We got a positive exchange out of all those 4 cards, which is pretty incredible. And that is basically what gave us or allowed us to win that quickly, because if you can win that many exchanges very soon, the opponent is gonna have trouble to catch up, barring some very good multi-lane type cards. Turn 3, we played a Frost Shatter Strike and Spirit Leash, 2 cards that I would consider as underdrops rather than leveled threats. But at that point, we had gathered enough of an advantage that I figured that we'd gain a lot from just advancing our board and making as good trade as possible happen. The Frost Shatter Strike dealt with a creature, and it was basically a 2-for-1 because it killed a Grove Huntress blocking a Stormcaller that smashed through for 8, and it also helped the Scourge Hydra trade with a Blizzard Shaman. And 1.4, we got to play a Windweaver and a Volcanic Giant. No, not Volcanic Giant, Wind Primordial that we placed in Wind Primordial in 4 and Wind Primordial in 3 and Borean Windweaver in 2, allowing us to the next turn, since we drew an Abyssal Brute the next turn to move into both side lanes with and despite us missing the first turn, our own 2.1, we had the mobility to gain a lot of value from our cards. Well, we're up in game 2 here against Silverpelt, which is another potent player. Choices between Wind Primordial and Graveborn Glutton. I inclined to play Wind Primordial here because of its mobility, and because we have Abyssal Brute and Infernal Visage. I'm playing it in lane 2 or 4, so that if we need to, we can get the bonus. So this Spring Dryad is probably going to get eaten by a Avalanche Guardian. We could also play a Borean Windweaver and Scourge Hydra, blocking the Spring Dryad and hitting the Borean Windweaver to be up the exchange and level the more aggressive cards. And I think I'm up for that. Windweaver can move into some place and deal with a creature there. This hand I'd be looking to level a Blizzard Shaman and Dirge Banshee, but we'll see how the turn unfolds from our opponent here. I suspect he'd have to waste another resource, or to kill the Scourge Hydra, which would put us once again up the exchange. so there's one 2-lane creature, and there's the Frostfang Maiden, which I think we're just gonna plain trade with here. I feel like Scorch Hydra dealing 7 and then blocking the 3 tree folk is going to be good. Other than that, well, that would incline us not blocking or not playing Blizzard Shaman, because that could potentially lead to something that we don't want. So I'm thinking Wind Primordial in 3 and Dirge Banshee in 5. That is something I'm quite happy with. Actually, I think I'm just going to play both of them in 5. So Wind Primordial in 5 post-combat. Oh, that's true. I'm not going to be able to block with the Wind Weaver later. That was a mistake on my part. So let me just block the Tree Folk with a Blizzard Shaman. Something I'm very fine with. Moving the Wind Weaver, allowing it to survive, would just get it killed by the Frostfang Maiden. So our opponent got really good value out of the Roman Warclaw there, and the Grove Matriarch is going to be strong as well. I think what we are going to want to do is just play both of our ambush cards, assault cards, and try to keep this advantage going. We can ignore the roaming Warclaw for now, I think, or rather, let's shrink it, because the seedling isn't going to do anything. So I'd rather have more health on 2 creatures. And this may be a mistake now that we see Tyrannic Ambusher in our hand. The fact that we have Wind Weaver should let us be able to move something out of an open lane to place the Ambusher there. But this 2.1 is very, very powerful. Especially since we are going first. If Silver Pelt misses this turn, it's going to be in all sorts of trouble. And I think we're going to just move the Calamity Fiend to deal with the Spring Dryad. Although that allows our opponent to make better plays with Roaming Warclaw. So maybe we want the Ambusher to deal with the Spring Dryad to have higher health creatures that are not able to be blocked by Warclaws. It would result in us dealing less damage, of course, but I think it may be worth it. And here we can choose to move our Calamity Fiend to block the Swamp Moss Ancient. It's trading a 4/5 against a 7/3, which is a good exchange, but since we have 2 unblocked creatures in open lanes and 2 very big creatures that needs to be dealt with, although they do both have mobility, so they will both get through the next turn, despite if our opponent tries to block them. Maybe that is something that makes us want to move the Calamity Fiend and trade here. But I think we are the aggressor here, and we have cards that deal or block the Ancient well. Dirge Banshee, Wind Primordial, so-and-so. Blizzard Shaman is also so-and-so. Could take the aggressive route. I could easily block here. That could easily be correct. But I want my opponent to have to deal with this, I think. Actually, let's move. And this is based on us having mobility on our big guys anyway. Well, we drew a Dirge Banshee, which was the best blocker for that. So may have ended up being a slight mistake, but it's not going to be a problem for us. So Spring Dried is a tough cookie. So I think we want to send our Thranic Ambusher that way. I think we want to play... When do we want to play our Blizzard Shaman? We don't want to hope to get the double trigger of Dirge Banshee. That is a very greedy play at this point. So let's just move this out of the way. Kill the Spring Dried while it's small. This is why Wind Weaver is so good. We can choose when to deal with our opponent's creatures. I think make the block here and then play the Blizzard Shaman. Because if this moves out of the way, we're just happy because that means we're pushing for more damage. So now we're winning in 4 lanes. It's probably gonna take 2 cards to deal with the Wind Weaver and the Ambusher. And then we can keep going with the Dirge Banshee and the Blizzard Shaman. Well, that's a good Frost Shatter strike from our opponent, and even a Swamp Moss Ancient, so we kind of lost most of our advantage there. This is why Frost Shatter Strike is such a good card. Luckily, we're still advantaged, and we're still winning in 3 lanes. But now that we've bricked 2 turns in a row, our opponent may be able to catch up. We do have a substantial life lead, and we did get to level 4 cards. So drawing level 2, level 2, level 2, level 2, like 4 level 2s in our first 2 turns in rank 2. Is going to allow us to ride this advantage and at the very least be even come the start of player level 3. This Spring Dried is slightly scary. What we could do is play a Zombie Titan and Infernal Visage to present big threats, and that can't be answered by Frostfang Maiden. Won't be able to deal with the Blizzard Shaman by itself. It would leave us in a tight position if we drew a bad first hand next turn. So maybe we want to do something more defensive, like block the Spring Dryad with a Steam Sentinel, because Silver Pelt level 2 Spring Dryads in anticipation of needing a high attack creature going forward. So that is kind of the defensive play here. It's going to be down to a 7/6, killing the Necromoeba. And the Necromoeba will actually spawn in one of these lanes. So having a Necromoeba to be able to spawn to deal with Spring Dryad makes me want to push for damage with Zombie Titan and Infernal Visage. We could also actually play Graveborn Glutton and Infernal Visage. And since our opponent has played some threats, I think that is actually going to be the better play. The attack stat is what's important here anyway. Unfortunately, our Oozling ended up in the, so to speak, wrong lane. But I think we are gonna be able to manage. This Spring Dryad is a threat though, and while I'd love to play a Calamity Fiend in lane 4 after his Frostfang Maiden probably moves out of the way to deal with the Calamity Fiend. Well, let's see what happens here. Needs some more damage. Storm Spear. Storm Caller. So the Spring Dryad isn't going to be that dangerous here. So what we could do is basically force the opponent to block. We're at a substantial life advantage that we could press for damage in 4 lanes here. So Calamity Fiend in 5, hitting the Stormcaller, and then Volcanic Giant, I think, is going to be the play here. This is slightly risky. I could also just play the Bitter Frost Totem on this guy and be able to block it and, well, eat it as a snack the next turn. And considering our advantage, that may actually be correct. So what cards do we have to deal 14 to something next turn? We have the Dirge Banshee, we have the Blizzard Shaman, we have... Well, it's not too much actually. So to be on the safe side, let's not play the Volcanic Giant. This is likely going to be, well, we went for the safer play because we were in a good position. And this is interesting, definitely interesting. So we can deal with one or two of the Spring Dryads actually. Let's start with playing Blizzard Shaman here, because if either of these moves, if Oozling moves in 1, that is ridiculously good for us. Look at that. That is, well, that is close to the definition of value, I think. And I'm presenting the trade with the Spring Dryad because it's dangerous. Still pushing in 2 lanes. Let's see what we can do here. Wind Primordial is going to be a danger for our opponent here, as well as the Wind Weaver. So our opponent were on the defensive while drawing 2 Spring Dryads, and it allowed us to be quite aggressive with our plays. Being able to trade not too many resources for them, due to them being just 9/9, and wow. Well, pushing for damage isn't what you want to be doing here. That is a clear mistake. Should have killed the Blizzard Shaman and traded the Spring Dryad, because the Spring Dryad isn't valued at all, basically here. And now the Wind Primordial here is going to be essentially lethal. So that was a clear mistake from our opponent. Being defensive, not really... what should I say? Not really considering who is the beatdown. Firelight Hunter, that isn't going to be enough. So we're 2-0 so far. No need to do anything, so just battle and win here. We're 2-0, and the deck is looking very good. We got to see the power of Windweaver in that game, really allowing us not to fall behind against Spring Dryads. The Spring Dryads, though, were still pretty good because they forced us to play a bit defensively, not to get run over, rather than to play offensively as I would have liked to be able to play. So we had to go for the slightly longer game with a bit more value-based, riding our advantage to a victory. So let's see what we're facing for round 3. So we actually face Utera Tempes in both round 1 and round 2. Which is a faction combination that I think I'd consider be the next weakest, the second weakest, after Alloy Necrium. So let's consider the cards that we played in this game. We started off with, let's see if I can recall this. Should be a good exercise. Not really recalling that well. Let's see here. We had Windweaver leveled. We had Thranic Ambusher, which we played a bit later. War Claws that were trading out for Scourge Hydras. Yeah, that's right. First turn, Scourge Hydra blocking a Spring Dried. Actually, we had a 4 health creature the first turn. Wind Primordial first turn. Was hit by Frost Shadow Strike and then Spring Dryad. We blocked the Spring Dryad with a 7/7 while it was a 3/3, so we were probably going to be up that exchange. Hitting our board in Windweaver into a 6/2, allowing it, rather than to push for damage, to just trade with something on that side of the board. That traded with a Frostfang Maiden, which I think is a decent enough exchange, because if the Windweaver would have moved, the Frostfang would have just moved on over and kill it. We played a Blizzard Shaman and a Dirge Banshee on 1.3. So far we leveled all the cards that we, basically all cards that we wanted to level. Last turn then, what happened then? That is something I can't really recall. But our third match is up, so let's go for that. Here, Wind Primordial in 2 or 4 is something that we've enjoyed. So we have potentially an Abyssal Maw play here that I'm not going to make, simply because having Abyssal Maw leveled isn't going to be good for us. Okay, so here we have an interesting choice. We can block both the guys, block the Torn Soldier with a Graveborn Glutton to gain some value out of that exchange, and block the Torrent Acolyte with a Scorch Hydra to gain some more value out of that exchange. But I think what I'd rather do is to play the Scorch Hydra, hit the Wind Primordial and trade that with the Torn Soldier. Rather than dealing 6 damage to my opponent, I want to have a 7/7 out, and then block the Acolyte with a Graveborn Glutton, so that tricks and shenanigans like Grove Huntress won't be a big problem for me. Presenting the trades like Glutton and Perdition Guard really allows your opponent to blow you out, which won't allow you to play your type of game here. We could have an interesting turn here, playing a Blizzard Shaman in an outer lane, seeing if the Scorch Hydra enters an outer lane, and then play Infernal Visage for 2 very, very powerful creatures. We could also leave our Blizzard Shaman underleveled and play Calamity Fiend, targeting what's blocking the Hydra to make it into a positive trade, and a Necromoeba just to, make the plays that ooze with value, if I'm correct. And use Blizzard Shaman and Infernal Visage as underdrops. I think that is what's leveling the strongest cards. It kind of depends on what our opponent plays here. Aspirian Sage, that kind of feels like we need to go a bit aggressive, because Aspirian Sage gets a lot of stuff leveled. I recall that for playing a lot of AU in the Constructed right now. Calamity Fiend is going to be amazing to push damage. We're going to kill the Aspirian Sage in front of the Scourge Hydra, push there, and block the other with Necromoeba, I think. Ignoring the Grove Matriarch. Necromoeba blocking the Matriarch would actually be a positive exchange, but it's more it's more likely to be troublesome for something like a Matrix Warden would really blow us out, which it won't here. So this is kind of a defensive play, not allowing the good cards from our opponent to deal with the value engines that we have going on. Blocking the Grove Matriarch with Stormcaller here is really something that I really look into, and playing Thrantic Ambusher in lane 5 likely to push for more damage. Against Sages, getting that type of play in, it's going to be good. So Prowler is fine in a deck with Sage to play, because you get to level additional cards anyway. So it's not as bad playing it here. In another deck, of course, you'd much prefer to trade with something better. But you can't always do that. I think we're just going to push for damage here. The Necromoeba will trade here with the Espeon Wartusk, so I'm actually going to push for damage while killing the Wartusk here, making our opponent have to block the Calamity Fiend and Necromoeba this turn, which means taking a bunch of damage from the Thrantic Ambusher next turn. And if the Necromoeba isn't successfully blocked here, we have Spirit Leash to work with the Necromoeba. It's going to be pretty good. I'd be looking into ignoring this Grove Matriarch, because we are the aggressive deck, and we can if we can have aggressive creatures in at least one lane at any time in the game, it's going to be profitable for us. So rather block the Matriarch when we have a card that wins the trade, and ignore it until then. And that is the good thing with aggro decks, that you can choose. So this Oozling could be a conduit for a Spirit Leash onto the Thrantic Ambusher. Or we could play Abyssal Maw into a Wind Primordial. It's an interesting play here, and I think, well, the Thrantic, if we Spirit Leash the Thrantic Ambusher, have to put 2 resources into it, unless they draw the Metamind card that brings the Power Torrent, the 11/7, gets the +3/+0 spell, which is what makes Spirit Leash bad. Apart from that, I don't think there is much in our opponent's deck that trades with the 12/12, so we could get a lot of value from there. I think I'm going to go with the Spirit Leech play here. It's 2.1, so it's fine to do this kind of play. And Abyssal Brute in the side lane. Since we're an aggressive deck, we'll be able to place a big creature in lane 5 next turn that can really use the buff, such as Necromoeba or Scorch Hydra. Next turn of Necromoeba blocking Grove Matriarch and Scorch Hydra hitting Necromoeba sounds like really, really good value for us. And the 12/12 regenerate is nothing to scoff at in the side lane. Actually, let's look at what our opponent leveled with the Sages. This is something that you should always do, and it's something that I hope with the new UI that you'll be able to see, so you can click through all the cards that happened in the turn. Like you can click like this card targeting this card targeting this card. So you can have a visual effect that shows what cards are leveled clearly. So Matrix Warden and Cavern Hydra. So Matrix Warden is actually also a really good card to trade with the Ambusher here. That's a Grove Matriarch. It barely loses this trade. With Matrix Warden, it wins. So it's interesting. Necromoeba could place a 3/3 in this lane or this lane. There is a case for playing Scourge Hydra after combat in a non-outer lane, just to ensure that we get 3/3s in all the right lanes. Actually, we could play it before combat in 4, and that makes us get 3/3s in both the good lanes, which seems better than to get the +1/+1 and the regenerate here. So due to that fact, I'm gonna change my play slightly because of the great value we're getting from our Oozlings here. So if our Necromoeba gets back up to full health, our opponent is going to be in a heap of trouble. Something like the Torrent Acolyte, I think it's called, blocking the Scourge Hydra into Ursine Strength on the Seedling would be something I'd heavily look into if I were the opponent here. Of course, we have a Bitter Frost Totem, which does not quite deal with... it's -8/-8. Okay, so that actually deals with 11/7. I'm kind of likely to use this Bitter Frost Totem to push for damage. On a different note, well, there's a Grove Huntress that is even better if you also have a Matrix Warden. So, got there, I suppose. We're still going to be able to push for a lot of damage here with a Wind Primordial somewhere. I don't care about blocking the Matrix Warden here because it just takes a Matrix Warden level 2 to swing that trade, and I'd rather deal with the Matrix Warden on my turn. And if I don't block it, there is no value in playing a Matrix Warden, buffing that guy. And I can easily block it next turn. Yes, well, soon, since I have been given the honorary mission to take care of Avalak's draft tier list, there's going to be this is some value from our opponents with Torrent Acolyte and Torrent Soldier, diluting the deck slightly. Something that I didn't want to see here. I'm looking into just ignoring the Torrent Soldier here. Yes, but anyway, look forward to. I will be writing an article on, let's see here, do we care about this guy? We don't care about the Torrent Soldier, that's what I think. So let's kill this guy. And let's play the Windweaver here. If we actually kill this guy, I'd have the option of moving over with the Windweaver or the Calamity Fiend next turn to deal with it. But it's level 3 for me next turn, and if I draw something good, I can just block profitably there. Unfortunately, not in such a position. Not sure I finished the train of thought, of course, since I always get lost in the trains of my thoughts about the draft list. But yes, I've started to make some changes according to my own preferences, and I'll try to make a write-up of the changes that I made very soon. An active Abyssal Maw would be great here. Unfortunately, it's not happening. I'm not looking into blocking the Torrent Soldier yet, and unfortunately we don't really have good blockers for the Sage either, because if I'm looking into blocking it with with the Seismic Adept and pushing through damage, but that is kind of weak to Power Torrents and Grove Matriarchs and all that kind of shenanigans. So I think I'm just gonna run the positive trade as it is right now and make sure I get a healthy Seismic Adept. And we're currently ahead on board, ahead on damage and winning in 4 lanes. We're ignoring lane 2 until we can make a good trade. Like this turn. The Scorch Hydra into Windweaver should be able to push some really good damage for us. Torrent Soldier is a problem, unfortunately, because it'll be able to kill our Wind Primordial. So we'll not have the same advantage as we had before. Also, Torrent Acolyte there isn't what I'd hoped for. Spore Torrent and Torrent Soldier is going to get a buff. There we go. So it's interesting to see how much damage we can take here reasonably. We're going to activate this Seismic Adept post-combat to either move the Torrent Soldier in front of the Scorch Hydra to trade both of these for the Scorch Hydra. But I doubt that's going to be the play. No, that is certainly not going to be the play. We're going to move this Torrent Acolyte to block the Adept and have the Scorch Hydra with the Windweaver to be able to deal a lot of damage here. So Seismic Adept here, showing why it's such a good underdrop. It could move itself. So the question is, would I rather... I think having it in the side lane is... Actually, do I care about this trading? I could just potentially ignore them. So that may have been a mistake, because if my opponent has Laydown Golem here, it could be pretty silly if I move. And if I move, it's definitely a misplay. But if our opponent leaves the Seismic Adept alive, he can't possibly block my 2 creatures. But the fact is, if I block it, there will be more lanes clear to push for damage in. And this hand is probably going to win us the game, because we're going to be able to push for damage with Scorch Hydra and Windweaver. And unless Yota here shows up with some amazing threats, I'm going to open lane the Wind Primordial to be able to push for the last 16. Actually, I don't even need to deal damage to my opponent with the Windweaver, because if I deal damage with the Scorch Hydra, the Wind Primordial itself has enough attack to be able to finish the job. Okay, so that's kind of scary. Torrent Acolyte. Yeah. So suddenly our position looks not quite as good. And there's a Power Torrent there as well. So how do we play this? How much damage does this deal? 12. That means we can't kill this. This is quite a pickle, actually. We're under a lot of pressure. If we weren't under pressure from the Acolyte and the Grove Huntress, we would definitely just open lane the Wind Primordial and deal some damage with the Scorch Hydra. Now we could potentially deal damage with both of our guys and move the Scorch Hydra post-combat. How much do we deal, actually? We deal 29 damage, taking our opponent down to 4. We're blocking the Torrent Acolyte with the we're taking 18 and then we're taking 17 next turn. We can't do that. So I think all the cards needs to get traded with, except maybe the Grove Huntress. So we could kill. Well, the problem here is that Bitter Frost Totem doesn't deal with the Torrent Acolyte. I think maybe we just want to block the Grove Huntress with the Wind Primordial post-combat. I think that is our best bet. So moving this out of the way, moving this somewhere, and killing this, blocking here. That way we're killing off the entire board. And I don't think I want to take 11 here. My opponent has shown a lot of tricks, which would make me reluctant to block there, but since we haven't pushed the damage... Maybe the best choice is actually hitting with the Scorch Hydra, trading with the other two cards in the side lanes, and blocking the Grove Huntress with the Wind Primordial. That gets us hit by the Torrent Acolyte for 17, which is kind of dangerous. But if he doesn't have a pump for the Grove Matriarch, we win. Seems like such a risky play. Yeah, it feels too risky in my book. Depends a little bit on what do we have left to draw. Calamity Fiend, Necroamoeba. It's not looking too good there. So maybe we just go for it, actually. What do have our opponent played? This turn is really, really hard, so let's try to make the best out of it. Torrent Acolyte, Grove Huntress 3, drawn the Power Torrent. No, I got the Power Torrent, so he basically has a lot of Power Torrents, and he got a bunch of ways to just deal with the Wind Primordial. I feel like there are too many of those ways to do something good. Okay. So I've made my decision here. Unfortunately, it's gonna involve trading off basically everything. I'd love to be able to hit my opponent, and if Yoda had missed there, I think I'd be in much better position. Still here, I think I'd be able to block profitably with a Steam Sentinel somewhere, because our opponent had drawn a lot of good cards already. So there's the Spore Torrent, unfortunately. So we're going to face two creatures here and may not be able to block profitably with a... Yeah, this is a problem. War Tusk and something else big. Grove Huntress, that is... At least that's fine. How do we deal with this? Now we are the ones under pressure. I'd love to not block the War Tusk with the Calamity Fiend, giving it -4/-4. What do I have to draw then? Oh, it's not that. This is what I want to see. Don't have too good spells going on. But this isn't a trade by itself. So I mean, it's kind of out of the question. Could do the Urantibolt thing, which may actually be our best bet. Taking as little damage as possible. I think we can take the 4 from this for a few turns, but I don't want to take damage from this. So I guess I'm just going to open lane this one, and then Urantibolt. using it to buy time. Unfortunately, this hand lost us the game. There was a good placement of the Grove Matriarch from our opponents, or Grove Huntress from our opponent's side, not allowing us to play the Calamity Fiend in an outer lane. So we're gonna have to hope for a miraculous miss from our opponent's side this turn. Blocking the War Tusk with the Banshee. Well, there's a Matriarch. That Matriarch is going to be a problem. So what can we do? I don't think we can do too much. We need to block the Matriarch, yes, because the Spearing War Tusk will deal a lot of damage. Blocking the War Tusk with the Banshee is going to be the best bet from there, and then we should just block with the Grove Matriarch with whatever. I mean, we've basically lost the game at this point. I don't think there's anything we can do to get back. It would be Windweaver. But actually, we're taking 15 damage here. Any pump spell kills us, and he has a lot of them. So I think we're just dead here. Unfortunate, but really good draws in player level. Well, in the start of player level 3. What is this? You had lethal. Playing games with my heart, eh? So that's well, it would be a misplay if it actually mattered. Not even double howl here would make a difference. So let's concede this game. Our opponent had a leveling advantage. Well, had a bigger deck as well. So I think we got kind of hit by the good leveled cards at the start of that player level, and we tried to find a way to leverage it. Had the leveled card not been a Grove Huntress in I think 1.2 or 3.2 from our opponent, and we'd be able to trade off the Seismic Adept. That would have been great. Actually, we had the play to make the trade happen already. Not to attack first and then block. I think Grove Huntress is the sole card that fills a lane and pumps a guy defensively. So, but there was a play actually to maybe be able to win that game, and I may have been too aggressive trying to deal the 4 damage with the Seismic Adept rather than just killing something immediately. So we could actually Blizzard Shaman in 1, see if our Windweaver hits 2 or 4 or 5, and then Infernal Visage. So we could potentially do that play. Another play that we could make, and maybe should make, is Dirge Banshee blocking the Blizzard Shaman to get the trade. That does blow us out to a Visage from our opponent, though. So if I do that, I should move this Windweaver out of the way. So if Visage happens here, we're pushing for 12 damage as well as having a Calamity Fiend to be able to deal with the Volcanic Giant. Well, that's a Rage of Kadras. I've never seen that in draft before. It's bound to be pretty good, so let's be careful. Well, I mean, this is a block we kind of have to make. 6/4, dealing 6 damage to us is going to be the greatest, and sorry about that. Abyssal Brute and Calamity Fiend should be pretty good here. Can't believe we got Rage of Kadras. It's pretty incredible. So now, maybe Abyssal Brute and Scourge Hydra. Yeah, let's try that. Just to get a 2/2 regenerate out. Should be worth something. And a Blizzard Shaman, moving something preferably in the outer lanes out of the way, and we'll be able to play something into an outer lane, such as, I think Stormcaller is the best bet here, because of its high power. If we were ahead enough, I think I'd play a Wind Primordial instead, so not make our opponent being able to block as easily. But here I think the big body is what matters. So there's another Stormcaller. Lucien played just 10-piece creatures and Rage so far, so I mean, we have to look out. This play could potentially incline me to overwrite the Oozling in 4 to make it more likely that the Abyssal Brute moves out of the way because of that bad trade out in the side lane. I don't think the 1/1 is worth too much. It also increases the chances of our other Oozling hitting the Stormcaller, I think. Because it'd be 1 out of 2 to move and 1 out of 2 against 24%er. Actually, it's a 25%er if we play it in. If we play the Blizzard Shaman in 4. Well, it's a 33%er if we played in 3. So, based on that, maybe it's better to play otherwise, but that means it's 33% chance to have the Oozling in 2 move in front of the Stormcaller, losing that trade as well as the Brute losing the other play. But then again, if we play it in 5, or play the Blizzard Shaman in 2, we have a risk of putting the Oozling. It's a 25%er of placing the Oozling in front of the Volcanic Giant, which isn't going to be that good. I feel like overriding this should be good. Hopefully we'll move the Brute some. And that was the worst case scenario, unfortunately, because now we have to do something completely out of the equation. Because we're losing 2 trades instead of changing one of these and be able to have a positive trade here. So unfortunately, we got the worst end of the stick right there. So Stormcaller here, maybe. We could place a Stormcaller here, but that just seems like really bad value, getting all these creatures to hit us. So that was a really important thing that happened, and I wished something better would have happened. Well, I will definitely be looking into playing Abyssal Brute into lane 5 here and killing the Stormcaller with either blocking with something or playing Uranti Bolt. Uranti Bolt may be the card that levels best out of these as under drops. There's a Frost Cheddar Strike, so pushing for damage is our opponent. Something that I'm fine with. There's a Stormcaller in an outer lane. Which kind of makes me inclined to play the Abyssal Brute in 5 and trading or getting something, playing a Stormcaller in, but that just loses straight up to Rage. Doesn't seem like too good of a play. So let's go ahead with this line, and we'll block the Stormcaller next turn. And we're gonna get to block the Stormcaller and then play something else in the side lane, hopefully, because the opponent probably won't deal with the Brute, or maybe actually will, because he's the aggressor. Being able to take 16 from the Stormcaller and blocking the Brute instead, so I can't place something in front of Stormcaller before combat and after combat. But let's see. So we didn't get a block here for Rage, which is good. Unfortunately, this doesn't allow us to play Steam Sentinel into Zombie Titan or something like that. We can still play something like Instigator, Calamity Fiend. We're gonna take 10 from the Blizzard Shaman, unfortunately, but there's not much we can do about that. Rather level the Instigator, I think, than the Steam Sentinel. See if that comes back to bite us. So taking another 10. We're getting low on life, and unfortunately we're not going to be able to get up the exchange on the Blizzard Shaman. Gonna have to block it with Avalanche Guardian, I think, and playing a Wind Primordial, blocking something else. Oh, these Blizzard Shamans are really giving me the business. They're really big in 1 and 2. Unfortunately, our own Shaman was kind of unreliable. And I think, well, we could have been lucky there, having his Blizzard Shaman move to lane 1. But that didn't happen. Well, we're going to be up the board now. Fortunately, I'm playing Bitter Frost Totem here rather than Avalanche Guardian because of Rage. So we're up on board. We're going to need to really gain an advantage soon. Hopefully we can block something with Wind Primordial, move and kill something with Wind Primordial, and draw something big the next few turns. Brute. Oh man, we don't have much leveled, have we? Only 3 level 3s. That's going to be hard. That's going to be tough. We're certainly up against it at this point. But we definitely have the chance. There we have a Brute and a Windweaver, so this is actually an amazing hand. One of the best we could have. if our opponent bricks here, could be in real trouble. Well, Warbringer Uranti is doing good things with a Volcanic Giant, that's for sure. But I'd consider that a brick anyway. Well now, that's not much of a brick, is it? Okay then. Seeing as we're low on life here, let's try to make the best out of this situation. And the best, I think, is playing, overwriting the Oozling in 5 with a Windweaver, getting the regenerate on that guy, being able to move out of the way next turn and get yet another Abyssal Brute combination with that. I think I'd like to block the Volcanic Giant with a Necromoeba, but I guess could actually just block it with a Windweaver and deal some damage. Move the Oozling out of the way next turn. Yeah, okay. That was a kind of a mistake. I should have placed the Brute in 4, moved over the Necromoeba to block the Uranti here. I have good hands here. I have really good hands to do things this turn. If the Necromoeba is killed, I can move the Abyssal Brute itself out in the corner. If it's not, well, maybe actually our entire board will be filled. 10 damage against the Tempe's deck is very low. But with Wind... So we died. Yes. Are we dead? Yeah, we died. Double Frost Shatter Strike. Could have played around that, actually. And should have. Once again, we got punished for not trading immediately. If we had insisted on not doing the 7 damage to the face, but rather move and block immediately with the Necromoeba, would have been able to maybe do something better here. So if there is a lesson to be learned from this draft session, when we unfortunately went 2-2, which I think is far, well, below average for this deck. I suspect it to go 3-1 or 4-0. Then the lesson is to take good trades when you can, especially when you're low on life. So we could have had a 4 creature advantage, and that would have been very good for us. Anyway, it was a fun draft, and I hope both you and I learned something from it. And I will see you next time. Thank you.